All right, here we are live for our first show in a long time. I'm here with Gavin from the Vanguard and Screen Fiends. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, John. Really excited for the conversation. How's it going?
Going pretty good. It's been kind of slow for me. This is my first interview stream in, God, a few months. Still trying to get that school finished. So apologies to anybody like my long time maybe regular viewers for not being around. But hopefully we're gonna have a good conversation. I guess we should. I guess for some of somebody who, sorry, I'm already screwing up. For people who do not know who you are, Zach, could you tell the audience who will see this either now or in the future who you are and what you do? Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Gavin from the Vanguard, co-host of the Vanguard, which I do with my friend Zach. We're a progressive political podcast. We talk a lot about the online left. Sometimes we like to focus on online drama between, prominent leftist commentators. So, we break it down through a fairly unique lens when compared to other channels, but we like to deliver a substantive show along with the drama, along with all of the juicy beef that people like to hear about. But yeah, we like to have fun. We like to, try to make the depressing realities of news and politics a little bit more entertaining, if that makes sense. We understand that we're online commentators. We're not fucking Amy Goodman or anything like that. And, we try to deliver an entertaining experience for people at the same time as, being educational and pushing the progressive policies and the message that is so important to uplift the working class in this country. But yeah, I think that's a pretty decent way to describe our show. I also am a filmmaker. I'm not just interested in politics. I'm not just a political commentator. I do a lot of experimental filmmaking here in Kansas City. That's something I've been doing even more in the last year or so. So yeah, lots of good stuff going on.
You're also the host of a second show, speaking of films, Screen Fiends, which I just subscribed to yesterday. I watched
thank you.
That episode you were talking about with the gal who, what's her name? She's not returning to the Scream franchise.
Gina Ortega.
I guess we could talk about that a little bit too. This is kind of be a mixture of, as you say, talking about people in leftist spaces and kind of the 2024 presidential race, which I will admit I am very, very agnostic regarding the race. I mean, I watched the show. I will say this. I first started watching your show about a year ago. Shouts out to my fellow leftist, former TYT moderator, Adrian Vixen, who actually introduced me to you. She kind of gave me the rundown of who you guys were and that you're also fellow Kansas Cityans, longtime Missourians, Kansas City represent. We're both Midwesterners. There's not a lot of leftism here in our town. We are a deep red state. I mean, pretty much so. I mean, coin toss, the state's going to go Republican in 24, be as it is, maybe Trump or Ron DeSantis or whoever. I mean, and there's just not a lot of leftism here in Kansas City. There's not a lot of us here that are like leftist. I call us podcasters, even though that's probably a kind of overused term. I mean, streamers, as you say, content creator. I kind of call myself that as well. I mean, I've been doing this for a little over 2 years. This anniversary was actually September, so I'm just doing this kind of off and on. Yeah. Doing this off and on for 2 years while I'm going to school. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. And like any good interviewer, I wrote down my questions. Also should just throw the like and subscribe. Where is it? I usually save this stuff for the end, but I should probably just throw that up, if you can, like and subscribe on YouTube, on Twitch, which we are on. So say hi to the Twitch viewers. Yeah. You guys are on Twitch too, right, Gavin?
We are. For whatever reason, we've never really been able to attract much of an audience on Twitch. I have no idea why. But yeah, we are technically on Twitch. But yeah, congrats on the 2-year mark for streaming. That's definitely pretty cool. And yeah, it's super cool that you're also a Midwestern Kansas City lefty. That was one of the main reasons why I was like, I definitely want to have a chat with John because there's not a lot of us in this neck of the
Yeah.
woods.
Yeah, I mean, I was born here and then raised later. I've lived all around Missouri my whole life, and it's been kind of an evolution for me. I mean, growing up kind of in a conservative small town area, growing up in a back when it was okay to call it a liberal family, and then, kind of branching out into my own, being my own person, finding my niche in the broadcasting world, kind of getting interested in streaming, kind of, watching. And I will admit this, I was a big TYT fan in high school.
Oh, me too. Me too, man.
And we can talk about
TYT
that
fan.
because there's a lot of stuff going on there that is not good. And as one of the moderators who quit this summer, it's getting worse and worse. And, but we'll get into that I think he's left. No.
Sorry, I was just fixing my lighting. You're good. But yeah, what do you think about TYT? Because I have so many issues with them. The one thing I will say though is that I have been enjoying Jank's commentary on the whole like Palestine situation. I think he's been a pretty loud and proud voice on the right side of history in that specific context. Obviously, that doesn't erase all my many criticisms of the network, but yeah, what's your what do you think about the recent commentary?
To be honest with you, I haven't really watched a lot of TYT since we left. I kind of checked out after the mod quitting. And a lot of it was just kind of, for me, it was like, I was I missed a lot of things being a fan. Like I was one of the few on the left that, took the side of TYT and like hated on Jimmy Dore. Unfortunately, like now I look at it and, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, and Jimmy Dore are equally as bad. Like there's no difference between them, between the three of these. And, I would say probably on Palestine, he makes a good point, but that doesn't mean like that's going to like make me change my view of him in general. And definitely as a network.
Neither.
I mean, and the way they go about themselves as a network, and I'll say it right here, right now, that, there's a lot of simping for like the fanship of TYT and all that BS. I mean, it's really interesting to see how like far they've fallen, from like the TYT of like when I started watching it was 2008. I was in high school, and it's just like the TYT of that era is different from the TYT of say like today. I mean, even when they were like in Bernie Sanders like 2015, 2016, they were still quite watchable, despite the fact that there was a lot of problems going on behind the scenes with certain.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I was such a huge fan of TYT in the Bernie era. That was an exciting time in my life, obviously, because Bernie Sanders, I was really getting into politics. Bernie was so inspiring. It was great to be a part of a progressive movement that actually felt viable. And TYT were basically the best Bernie cheerleaders on YouTube at the time, and they did a great job calling out the establishment. I really became a pretty avid watcher during that period of time. I remember the first time I started to kind of get a little bit sus about TYT was in the next election cycle when it was Elizabeth Warren versus Bernie Sanders, and they kind of started doing this false equivalency, or at least Cenk did, between Warren and Bernie, saying things like, oh, well, if Warren prevails over Bernie, then that's just as good for us as progressives. Like we should be just as excited about her as we are about him, which I thought was ridiculous. I mean, from a policy perspective, he's so much better. We don't have to rehash all of that. But I remember being like, what's going on here? Very, very, blatant calculation, kind of finger in the wind, like, where's the wind going to blow? I'm going to follow that, versus like a principled support for a candidate. So yeah, always definitely had some issues with TYT, but it's gotten so much worse in the last few years. And I think a big part of that is because of the fact that the Bernie movement just totally imploded, as we all know, unfortunately. And all of that kind of progressive energy online dried up. So now they're in this position where they're like, shit, where are we going to get our new audience from? Because that's what they are. They're wave riders, finger in the wind wave riders. So now they're trying to court a more moderate audience, and they're the home of establishment progressives now, or mainstream progressives, or whatever Cenk is calling it. And he's running for president, which is just totally embarrassing. So yeah.
I mean, that's like, number one, he can't. Let's just be real. He cannot run for president, and so it's just like, you know what? It's just not. It's not really worth looking at this point. I mean, we remember his 2019 race, and like, I will be honest with you, like, I was a lot more sympathetic to Cenk back then than I was of this race. I think if you remember, like, as with anything, it's like they were bringing up all the issues with his past, whether it be the denialing of the Armenian genocide, or the blog post that he wrote when he was a conservative and that he denounced. Like, at that time, I was like, you know what? As far as like the blogs, I will say this: he did say the truth at the time. When, shall we say, could have done, lied about it, or like fabricated something and been like, it wasn't me, and then it just festered and festered into something, unimaginable, and then came out and said, yeah, actually, I did write that. I did write those things, and then it would have backfired. I mean, back then in that race, like, he actually admitted it, and like, I was a little more sympathetic then, but now it's like, because of everything with what's going on with TYT, I think now he went on that PBD podcast and he said they're, quote, mainstream progressive, whatever that is. I think it's more just like kowtowing to what, as you said today with David Pakman, he's kowtowing to like a liberal, like a Biden-esque audience. And it's just not going to work. It's going to backfire. He's going down the route that David Pakman's going, and I just don't see them coming back from this. I mean, even if even if they were to kind of have some sort of quote unquote redemption, it would just be too little, too late. And plus, he's trying to hawk his book, which I have not bought.
The book is so dumb. I mean, it's weird, right? Like, obviously, if they're saying positions that I agree with, I'm not just going to reflexively disagree because I dislike them. Like I said, when it comes to the Palestine stuff, I think Cenk's been pretty good on that. On Piers Morgan, he was making some good points. So, like, in a vacuum, I still think that just about anyone can be a decent communicator if they find themselves in the right place. Even someone like Jimmy Dore, I don't know, on some issue, if he got on TV and started saying the right thing, I'd give him credit for that too. I mean, obviously we can give credit to people, but I think that TYT the ship has sailed as far as taking them seriously as an actual vehicle for any sort of like revolutionary change, or even just a way to spread progressive policies. They haven't quite proven to be consistent on that, willing to throw trans folks under the bus. Of course, we all remember that. So I don't know, man. Sure. It's weird. It's disappointing more than anything. It's how I feel about a lot of the Bernie Sanders movement, just kind of seeing it fall apart and people abandoning their principles. Sucks.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this up there. Adrian Vixen, the gal who actually introduced me to you guys, said, right after we left, they rewrote their core values, which, it was really interesting to see how they responded right after we left. After the 10 of us, well, including myself, the 11 of us left, they, like, Cenk did this, like, really weird ass, like, mea culpa, like, we love the moderators and like we respect their decision. It's just like throwing us under the bus. And yet we had this resignation letter that I know that you and Zach graciously saw, like broadcast on your show this summer, and nobody would read it. Like, only one person in the leftist media community would actually read the letter, actually read it like from beginning to end. Nobody else did. And I am like thanking you guys. I mean, I hate to sound like a social climber here, but I really will thank you for supporting us and like giving us the good positivity, because it's been, I mean, it was hell. I mean, I was there like for 3 months, but even still, I was told beforehand how things were, and so I came in there knowing, like, one, I built a lot of rapport with my fellow moderators, including Adrian, and we just decided, look, if they're going to do this, if Jank and Anna, particularly on the main show, are going to do this, we're out. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
No more of this shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's the other disappointing thing about Anna is that, like, as someone who actually had a lot of respect for her to go down this road, this anti-trans, first like with the homeless, and then, yeah, exactly, the anti-trans thing. I mean, what's it going to be next year? Are you going to, she's probably going to say something ableist 9 times out of 10.
Right.
And then it's going to be really fucked up.
Yep. And then they support people like Rick Caruso. So it's not like, like it would be one thing if they had a few problematic opinions, but when push came to shove, they still supported the right policies and the right people. But you can't even say that about them. It's like, no, I'm not going to sit here and tolerate all of your stupid dog whistles to the, TERFs and the, anti-homeless right wing, so that you can then turn around and vote for Rick Caruso and be the person I suspected you were all along. Like, no, what the fuck is the point of supporting that? It's completely idiotic in my opinion. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And also I think it was just so, I felt so bad for the other employees of TYT, who I think probably are really good progressives whose hearts are in the right places. I think of folks like John Iadarola. I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but I don't think he would sign off on Anna's, birthing person rant and like her whole hang up on that. Same with people like Ravana, I don't think they sign off on that shit, but it's tough to walk away from a job. Like, this is it's a tough economy, like people need a stable income. So it's hard to blame people like, Nina Turner, Ravana for staying there, but I'm glad I wasn't put in that situation, and that's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to ever imagine joining, some network or being part of a show that's not, just solely run by Zach and I, because I don't want to have to, be in this position where it's like, oh, my boss said this thing, and no, I don't know if I can push back because I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be at odds with the people who are, employing me. That's a terrible place to be in, especially as an independent thinker, especially as an anti-authoritarian leftist. Like, no, I will not be quiet. So yeah, I really feel bad for those folks too. And obviously you guys did the right thing as moderators by making that statement and saying, no, we're not going to, just be quiet about this. This is worth protesting. So I have a lot of respect for you guys for doing that.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, Adrian also said this. Ann and Jank think it's a good policy choice of putting the unhoused in camps or mandatory hospitalization. I think it's better if you respond to this or talk about this, Gavin, than I am, because it's like I am at times a loss for words of how to decipher what Anna and Jank say these days. Again, it's like she said earlier, it's just a pure grift with these guys. I think the comments Adrian's referring to is when like Jank and Anna were talking about some policy plan where it's like basically just moving all of the unhoused people in the Los Angeles area and kind of like setting up a giant camp in the outskirts of the city to put them all in. And it's like, what is this, fucking District 9? Like a concentration camp, you mean? On the what? Like, how is that in any way a viable solution to the problem? Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. And I it's not that we can't talk about the problem. Like, it is a problem. And I don't think as a left we should deny the horrific state of affairs in a city like Los Angeles for the unhoused people. But to act like the people with houses are the victim in that situation and not the people without them, like, what? You've completely flipped it on its head. No, we should be talking about this issue, but it should be out of concern for the unhoused, the people who are living through this humanitarian atrocity, not the bougie assholes like Anna Kasparian who just have to gawk at it while they, go get their fucking cup of coffee in the morning or whatever. Like, it's so stupid. And again, to get mad at the left, the progressives, and the unhoused themselves instead of the landlords, instead of the developers, which are jacking up the cost of living in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, resulting in this mass displacement of working class people that grew up in those areas, people whose communities those actually are, instead of all these, rich yuppies that move in and buy up the real estate, jack up the rent, and force everyone out, gentrify like, how can you be more mad at the powerless left and at the unhoused and the gentrifiers, the developers, the landlords, the capitalist criminals
that create the, conditions for this all to take place in. It's insane to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of that in here as well. Like we have all these like high rises that are building up, and it's like they're picking and choosing who is actually going to be in those buildings. It's like with me personally, like being on Section 8 and like being able to have the place that I'm in, I'm very lucky to have it. But it's like there are other people out there that probably need it just as much, and you're kind of it's like playing a game of semantics or something with with people who are the unhoused. It's like, oh, they have this thing on their background, and it's just like, oh, we're not going to allow them in there, and it's just like, it's no, you should, as a community, as a fellow minority, it's like we should allow everybody to have good housing, good quality income, good everything, and it's not happening,
Yeah.
especially in our town, in our state here.
Oh yeah, and I mean Kansas City definitely. It's not nearly as gentrified yet as a place like San Francisco or Los Angeles or Austin, Texas, or whatever. But it's happening here in a big way. Like in the West
Hmm.
Bottoms, where I live, the West Bottoms has, for the last many years in Kansas City, been this unique little world of its own. Right? It's kind of been known as a it has its own vibe, right? It's its own
Hmm.
little corner of Kansas City. That's why I love it so much. It kind of feels like the Wild West down here. People like to do drag racing and crazy shit with their cars down here. It kind of feels lawless, but not in like a dangerous way, just more in like a cool way. It's a hip vibe, right? But they're completely in the process of destroying it. They're completely in the process of gentrifying that. A New York real estate company has
Yeah.
bought out a bunch of the buildings down here. They're turning one of my favorite um, little bars that's been a bar for fucking 100 years into a nightclub, which is just gonna,
Um,
bring in a bunch of fucking scum into the West Bottoms from the suburbs and from the Power and Light district. It's going to totally change the flavor of the area. And I'm not going to leave the West Bottoms. I plan on staying here, but it's like, yeah, as someone that lives here, I have to watch this change happen for the worse. And for what? So that a couple billionaires or millionaires in New York City can get richer. You're going to destroy my fucking community and raise my rent so that a couple capitalist assholes that live in Wall Street can, increase the size of their wallet. Like how is that not what you're upset about, Jake and Anna? How is that?
yeah.
And the left should talk more about gentrification, honestly, because like it's one thing to say, oh, let's just build more public housing. Let's just build a fucking District 9 for homeless people, put up a bunch of shanty towns that they can live in shacks or what. No, stop gentrification so that people don't have to leave their fucking communities in the first place.
Mhm.
Institute rent control so that
Right.
apartments cannot jack up your rent and force out people whose communities these are. So while obviously I think we should build more public housing, I also think that we need to like address the root problem and prevent these capitalists from forcing people out of their communities. I just think it's insane.
And also like when they build these like big ass like I don't know what you would call them, like apartment complexes. Like stop how do you say gentrifying those?
Yeah.
Like allowing people who have a certain income to move in and others who don't. And it's just
I
like
hate those giant, apartment
yeah,
complexes that are,
we've got
yeah.
several of them here, and it's just like amazing. It's really horrifying the fact that they've like torn down. The other bug I have is like the historical buildings that have been in this place, like in this town for centuries, and they tore them down just to build like these really, as you say, jack up the price, uh, like fucking, quadruple buildings. It's just crap, really. And
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel really bad for the people who really need housing, not just myself, but you know, it's not good. I'm sorry for being speechless, but it's just
No, you're good, dude. I understand.
I have my issues with the city. I mean, I live off the government, especially in this town, but I also have my issues, and I just think that we need to do better. It's not just on the left, but in the community as well.
Oh, 100% agreed. Yeah, totally.
I live in the what do you call the Midtown area. I don't know if you've been through here. They closed down. If you go down West 39th Street, I told it to you on your show in the chat last year. There used to be a place called Tony's. It was a real good pizza place, and they shut down, man. They're really
really?
good.
Tony's? Where was that? You said in Westport?
Oh, it was it was in the Westport area, but it was in like the West
Oh,
39th Street area.
okay. Yeah. Interesting. I don't think I ever did go to Tony's, but that's a bummer, bro. There's been a couple good businesses in the 39th Street area that have closed. Like, did you ever go to the Blue Koi?
I've heard of it.
It recently closed. There's another location like in Johnson County, which is really good, luckily. But yeah, there's a couple local businesses like that that unfortunately shut down during COVID and stuff like that. It's such a bummer.
Have you had the Big Biscuit?
I have once. Yeah, I have once. I thought it was solid. I heard a couple of those like just closed too, though. Did you hear that?
Yeah, two of them did. I think they were both in Overland Park, and yeah, the one in Westport's still here though. It's kind of a bummer they're only open till 2 for breakfast because I've had it a few times. Had it with my dad this past summer, and then this last Christmas, or not Christmas, but on my birthday. My sister and I were born the same month, so we have the same birth month, so we went there. It was nice. The pancakes are to die for, man.
Oh, nice.
Tell you, they're the best thing ever, or at least I think so.
Yeah, we have some great breakfast spots down here. We could talk. We could have a whole nother conversation just about local eats.
Like a whole other show, whole other hour, just a whole separate show. Get Zach on here maybe, and he'll probably throw through.
Oh yeah, he has. Yeah. He's quite opinionated in that regard.
I would agree. I probably would agree with him if I heard. You never know. So I did write a few questions. Sorry for the tangent. It just kind of.
Oh, you're good, bro. No.
I guess the one thing one thing I wanted to ask, I guess, was like how you got started with the Vanguard, because you've been going for I think 3 years at this point, right? You and Zach.
Yeah, a little over 3 years actually. It was during the pandemic, basically. Zach and I, we'd been talking about starting a podcast, basically, for much of our entire friendship, whether it was going to be about movies or politics. It was always an idea that we talked about. To be honest, I never thought it was I never thought it was a viable thing. When Zach would bring it up, he'd be like, bro, we should start a podcast. And I'd be like, LOL. Yeah. Like, every dude bro says that to their friend, bro, we should start a podcast, man. Like, yeah, dude, I'm sure everyone's going to really give a fuck about the conversations we have. Like, yeah, totally. That's not delusional at all. And that was kind of my perspective for a while. I also was never like a big public speaker. I've always been a pretty introverted, shy guy. Never saw myself doing like broadcasting or acting or anything like that. So I think, it was during the pandemic. I just lost my job as a editor I was working at this company called Toast, editing wedding videos. I'd just gotten out of college. I just graduated from UMKC with a film degree. I finally got a job at this place editing wedding videos, like I said, which I wasn't, enjoying very much. It wasn't really my cup of tea, but I was like, hey, I have a job. Hopefully this leads to something. Then I lost that job because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously people stopped getting married, they stopped having wedding ceremonies that were the kinds of events that would be filmed and edited by Toast. So lost that job, but that actually was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because after losing that job, I was able to apply for unemployment. Speaking of government money, government came in pretty clutch during COVID, at least for some of us. And I was like getting, I think like $600 a week, which was so dope at the time. I was like, this is heaven. I was like, I hope the pandemic never ends. This is amazing. I don't have to work, and I'm getting paid way more than I would have if I was working. That was like so radicalizing too, because like I was working my ass off for $15 an hour, creating like, really well edited videos that most average people would have no idea how to construct. And I was just getting paid a measly $15 before taxes, right? And then all of a sudden I get laid off, but I'm making more money for doing no work at all. I'm getting $600 a month from the government. Like, that's insane, right? It was the best thing ever. And what it did was it gave me the opportunity to invest my time and my energy into creating the small business that Zach and I now run, which is our YouTube channel, right? And that's like, that's the American dream if you think about it. And that's why, it's not the only reason why I've always been in support of a strong social safety net and everything like that. But that's specifically one of the big reasons why I'm an advocate for like a universal basic income of some sort. It's because like it gave me the ability to do this as a job, to turn what I actually wanted to do for a living into my work, my occupation. Having even just $600 a week and that time freed up, not having to slave away and spend all your time and energy at a job you hate. Yeah, I was able to, and I think most people would be able to as well. Like, I don't think that me and Zach are necessarily way smarter or more capable than your average person. No, I just think that people don't have time, that they're constantly stressed financially, that they are spending so much energy at their jobs that they don't have time to pursue their actual goals. So yeah, during the pandemic, we, took that time, took that money, invested it into a YouTube show. Our first interview ever was with Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker, the Green Party candidates. Very first videos ever, I just emailed them. I was like, hey, we're starting the show. We'd love to interview you. Surprisingly, they responded. So we talked to Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker, uploaded that to YouTube. And then for several months after that, we're just uploading mostly interviews with progressive candidates and people like running for Congress and stuff like that. And it took a while to really build an audience. For a long time, it was like every video would get 100 views, or like we'd get super excited if our video got over 200 or 250 views, but it didn't really feel like much was happening. Just this interview after interview was like, is this ever going to pop off? Then we realized that actually people on YouTube don't just want to watch dry conversations with political figures. They want to hear about the beef, the drama. And as soon as we started leaning into that a little bit more, that's when our show really kind of took off. Force the Vote was happening at the same time. So that, provided the most fertile ground imaginable to be kind of creating drama content. There was so much drama going on. I was like, holy shit, what a perfect time. So a lot of luck as far as the timing, as far as the, what COVID afforded me is, with the unemployment and my situation. But that's how it all kind of got started.
And here we are today. And here we are.
Here we are.
Full circle. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was not a supporter of Force the Vote. Just out of the reason that it was very disjointed and very like lackluster. I think yes, we do need to have Medicare for all. I do believe in universal health care, but I took one look at it and it was just like, no, this isn't really the way, unfortunately, for me. Like, if folks like yourself like saw that and like you realize that that was the way, then I respect that. You know what I mean? Even if we would disagree with it, but
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there was a great, I was so happy that discourse happened. I wish there was more, not aggressive, but lively discourse that happened like that more often on the left, even though it did get pretty unhinged. Obviously, Jimmy Dore's a fucking lunatic and he makes everything way less productive. But, despite that, if you take Jimmy out of it, which I know is hard to do, but if you can take Jimmy out of it, then I think if you look at a lot of the conversations and debates that were happening with people like, Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball, Brianna Joy Gray, Sam Cedar, like there was actually really good strategic discussions going on as it related to like, all right, so we got these handful of progressives in Congress, the squad, whatever you want to call them, but like, what now? Like, what are they going to do? Like, they're there. Every once in a while they say something cool, but like, what's the point? Are they actually going to resist the Democratic Party leadership? Are they actually just going to vote for fucking Nancy Pelosi with no concessions whatsoever? So I thought it, provided an interesting strategic discussion about exactly what point the squad serves in Congress. It is unfortunate in retrospect, specifically, that, the absolute fucking freak of an individual, Jimmy Dore, was the one that had to come up with it.
Yeah, I honestly, I have to also reveal something to you. I never liked Jimmy Dore, even when he was a TYT. I saw him from a mile away thinking this guy is not what people should think he is or believe he is. He's a corporate shill. I mean, he's not somebody who should be taken seriously, in my opinion. Flashback to like 2019, 2020, when everybody was trying to get Bernie elected and make him be the Democratic nominee, he was out there supporting Tulsi Gabbard.
Yep.
and like buying into all that BS. And it was just like, dude, you're a hypocrite, because now it's like you bought into this. And like we can sit there and talk about how the People's Party movement like failed,
Yeah,
and
that was
how
another one of the big things we started talking about at the beginning of our
yeah.
show.
And I saw that panel that you and Zach did a few years, like 2 or 3 years ago, and how you brought on, I think, a lot of the folks that were involved in that, and how they felt betrayed by that so-called movement. And it got me thinking that that's kind of how we feel at TYT, being part of the mod group. It's like we did an interview, like shout out to the Letter Hack this summer. You brought us on and we talked about our experience. That's how I felt. That's what I was thinking of. Again, this movement that I wasn't really really a big fan of. I wasn't really a big supporter. And seeing that, I was like, yeah, these movements, these so-called political party movements, trying to bring the left together, um, and unity and solidarity, they just crash and burn. On top of that,
Yep.
all the stuff that came out about Nick Brana, also the big icing on the cake there.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I think that both scenarios with the Jimmy Dore left and the TYT left, I mean, I think it kind of proves the same thing, which is like, well, we can certainly look to YouTube commentary for entertainment. I don't know if we should necessarily be looking to these channels or commentators as serious movement leaders, right? Specifically with someone like Jimmy Dore or Cenk Uygur, who don't really have a history of activism. They're kind of just loudmouths online who are, yes, thought leaders, but don't really like there's no real reason to think these capitalist broadcasters would have principles. I mean, they are capitalists. They are loudmouths online that are subject to the whims of their audience, as we've seen over and over and over again, especially with Jimmy Dore, but also with Cenk and Anna. You know, audience capture seems to affect their politics more so than any sort of underlying principled ideology. So yeah, I think that it's a tough line to walk with podcasters, and obviously it's a case by case basis. Some of them are genuinely involved in activism, and some of them are like serious activists. I'm not saying that they're all just fucking charlatans and you know, capitalists or whatever, but you take a channel as big as TYT or Jimmy Dore, it's like you got to realize that there's more going on behind the scenes than just this like pure good-hearted attempt to get progressivism. Like, no, it's a business. We can't delude ourselves about what's going on with these shows. Like, they are businesses. They are profit-making businesses on a much bigger scale than a show like the Vanguard. Like, these are real companies, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah,
you can expect to be disappointed when their bottom line is in jeopardy, much like with any other corporation. That's, you know, part of the underlying anti-capitalist analysis that for some reason people seem to forget when it comes to commentators, or act shocked when they get let down.
Yeah, I mean, like you and Mac, good politic guy, and I can't think of anyone else, are probably the edgy. I'd probably throw Andrew Ravinsky in there, just because I like her. She's awesome.
Yeah, shout out to her. I like her too.
You guys, like in myself maybe, are like the real leftist independent, like news and commentary people, versus what TYT is, because we don't have to answer to anybody.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? We are our own people. I mean, yeah, we work at Twitch and YouTube, like they're owned by some big corporate entity. In the case of Twitch, like Amazon, YouTube is Google, obviously, and it's just like, but we still make the decisions, but we still have to, like, you know, like abide by the corporate rule, if you will, which is like just destroying leftist media by the long shot. I mean, I feel now, like when you look at the way the right wing is, I mean, as much as I hate it, I mean, they got Rumble, you know, and I mean, if they don't have, people don't like YouTube. I mean, the idiots that are like Crowder and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin and all those motherfuckers, it's like they got Rumble. Like, why? So like, why don't we have something like a leftist alternative to YouTube? You know?
Well, I mean, that's the real issue, right? The reason why they have Rumble is because Rumble is it's a venture capitalist project that is, funded by Peter Thiel and a bunch of other rich right wingers. Yeah, the left has no money, as Adrian just said in the chat. And technically, there are YouTube alternatives for what was it, Means TV? You ever heard of that?
Yeah. Yes.
I think Humanist Report was on there.
Yeah.
Yep. Like there have been attempts to kind of start like socialist or progressive alternatives to YouTube, but like it's just really hard to get the I can even tell you like a little behind the scenes tidbit, which you might find interesting in that regard. There was I don't want to name any names or like spill any tea because this never actually happened, but there was an attempt from a pretty high level person in California to create a progressive streaming service, like on a Roku TV or like an Amazon Fire TV or whatever. Right. There's all these streaming services, right? And she was trying to create like basically like an umbrella streaming service for all the progressives on YouTube, all the prominent ones, like people like the Majority Report crew and Tim Black and all these kind of people, right? They tried really hard, and this is a woman who had serious connections, serious money. She tried really hard to make this happen, and to really put together. And she could not get any investors. And like we would communicate with her sometimes because she wanted us to be a part of it. And every time she'd be like, we're getting so close, but it's almost going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then like it always fell through because no one wants to fund leftist content. No one wants to fund anti-capitalist content because the people funding it's directly in conflict with their interests. They don't want to, be funding the sort of ideology that identifies them as the problem with our society. Of course not. So yeah, I mean, that's really the issue.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day we'll have our own little leftist channel alternative to YouTube, like I would say our own worker-owned, like donated network of people. I mean, I'm sort of wondering why you're not on there yet, because I've sent you codes every net, like invite codes. Well, we got Blue Sky. As far
I
as
am a Blue Sky.
Oh, you are?
Yep.
Oh,
I just don't use it much. I don't know. It's like, as much as I hate Twitter, I just like, it's so hard to rebuild the whole following. I mean, I follow people that I don't know. I just can't recreate the same experience yet. But if it gets bigger and like more people go over there, then I'm glad I have an account,
Well, they're still in beta mode. And there's still a lot of stuff that you can't do yet that you could still do on Twitter. But like there's that. I mean, and the theory I have is like, going back to like the 1980s, with like right wing, I guess with the right wing, there's been like this starting with talk radio and then cable news and now YouTube. Like the left only has like a fraction of the space. We have Twitch and we have like probably a fifth of YouTube, but that's it, and the right wing still has we only have like one piece of the pie, and the right wing gets all the bigger slices. You know what I mean? It's a shame because there's a lot of good content creators, a lot of people that think like we do,
right?
And they just don't get a voice. And Carpe Pack says we have what? I mean, like I said, we have Twitch in a way. We just don't have. What I mean is we just don't have a big piece of the pie.
I think another, I mean, this is my opinion. It's just a theory. You can disagree with me if you want, but I think part of the reason why that is too is like, it's, to be blunt, the left tells people the uncomfortable truths that they don't necessarily want to have to confront, and that aren't always the most like, we tell you the reality, not what you want to hear, not what is going to make you cope with the reality in the way that might be the most optimistic or might make you feel good. And that is exactly what the right wing does. Like what's one of the big anxieties that most people our age have? It's about climate change. It's about the future of this fucking planet that we all inhabit. If you tune into a left wing show, what are you going to hear? You're going to hear a lot about, you're going to hear a lot more reasons to be paranoid. You're going to go to sleep, you're going to stay up at night thinking about the fucking melting of the ice caps and how we're all going to die and all this shit. If you watch the right content creators though, and conservatives, you're going to, Oh, it's all a hoax. Oh, I don't have to worry about that. That's awesome. Now I can sleep at night. Okay, now I can feel good about myself because I don't have to worry about all of this shit. I don't have to constantly be faced with the depressing realities of existence. And I think that's just so much easier for a lot of people to kind of ingest and to live with because they're not having to confront the horrific and often incredibly depressing realities of the existence which the left accurately identifies and provides solutions for, admittedly, but solutions that are often not exactly realistically attainable. Like we do offer solutions like, oh, well, we need to abolish capitalism. Well, that's not going to fucking happen, unfortunately. Like, I hope it does, but if I had to put money on it, it's probably not in the next 20 years, not in my lifetime, I imagine. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it too. Like just the pure aspect of like being a right winger makes it easier to live in this world because you're constantly being propagandized to accept the status quo, to accept the establishment. And it can get exhausting to constantly be in opposition to the establishment because guess what? The establishment's going to win like 9 out of 10 times, if not 9.9 out of 10 times, right? So if you can just find a way to subconsciously convince yourself that actually the status quo is fine and the establishment is based, well, that makes it a lot easier to go through life and just kind of be like, oh, it's all good. Everything is how it's supposed to be. Versus us lefties are like, no, everything is not how it's supposed to be. We need a fight to make it how it's supposed to be. But guess what? That's not going to be hard. It's probably not even fucking achievable in your lifetime. It's kind of hard to get people to get excited about that, but it is, the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, that first part that you said, that definitely applies to David Pakman. I'm just going to throw him under the bus right now. I mean, he just, I don't know what the hell's going on with him. And like, I've never been a huge Pakman fan. Like, I used to watch him in passing, but it's just weird to see him say like, Biden is like, he gives Biden more pass than he does these days. Like he's just a lib. You know what I'm saying? He's just a liberal. I mean, he's not somebody that we should take seriously. And yeah, sometimes it's hard not to talk about him, but when he's out there and he's spewing, like what you were talking today about him saying he was sympathetic to Israel or whatnot. It's like,
I said Biden was doing a remarkable job handling the Israel-Hamas war.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, you're better than this. And I don't know. I mean, maybe his brain is broken. I mean,
I think he's getting paid. I honestly think he's getting paid to. I think he's just an actual DNC shill. I can't prove that, but I just can't imagine what would compel someone to just utterly obliterate any sort of credibility as far as their ethical positions go. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, why would you throw away, like, I don't know how long he's been doing the show, but why would you throw away a decade of just, building this base for selling yourself out? I mean, it just doesn't seem right, Yeah. It's kind of the same way with Bernie. It's like I'm proud to have supported him in 2016 and 2020, but the fact that he won't call for a ceasefire on Palestine, it's just and like he's more sympathetic. If you look at it, for the last 4 years, he's been more sympathetic to Joe Biden than you think he would. It's like he went on the debate stage in 2020 and like gave Biden a pass pretty much at every take. Wouldn't even criticize him. And he criticized criticized Hillary Clinton more in 2016 than he did in 2020. Yeah. And it's just maybe just because he's been there, he's been in the behind closed doors. I mean, he has more access there now. Then we have to kind of realize, and again, proud to support him for both of his campaigns, always and forever. But I don't want to abandon him, so to speak, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today as far as being a leftist. But this, again, it's just disappointing to me. And I hope, I mean, I'm not trying to have too much hope here, Gav, but I've also, like, I want to see if he actually comes around and says, yes, he should do the right thing,
I certainly hope so, man. I mean, I share your sentiments. I'm always a bit disappointed in Bernie, but I am proud to have supported him as well. I think that, what he represented at this point is kind of outgrown who he actually is as a person, and like what he meant to people like yourself and to me. At this point, it's just like it's bigger than him and whatever
Hmm.
cowardly position he's taken on Israel. What he created and the movement that existed and that materialized behind him was the biggest and most optimistic or hopeful socialist movement of my lifetime. And I certainly think that we can't just completely like throw that away and just be like, oh yeah, Bernie was a sellout just because he's taken a lot of disappointing positions since then. Again, it's bigger than Bernie. It's about the policies. It's about Medicare for all. It was about, free college. It was about standing up to the Democratic establishment and saying, no, we're not going to fucking, support Hillary Clinton. We're not just going to let neoliberals run the show. We're at least going to have a presence, and we're at least going to be a thorn in your side, if nothing else. So yeah, obviously Bernie has disappointed me many times, and I've called him out. But there's a reason why we don't just make videos shit talking Senator Sanders every day. Like that's not something I really think is productive when there's so many people doing so much worse. And like I said, he just inspired me so much that I'll never be able to overlook that. But yeah, obviously it's incredibly disappointing to see him refuse to call for a ceasefire, at least just, join his fellow progressives like Rashida Tlaib and being honest about what's going on.
Yeah. And there's been a lot more, ironically enough, from like the corporate Democrats, the neoliberal shills themselves calling for a ceasefire. When you think Bernie himself should be doing that, it's like of all, and even in like in media, in corporate media, like the MSNBC, like Joyanne Reid, just like she's calling for the ceasefire, but it's just like, wow, you don't see that on the TYT on places like them,
Yeah, totally.
So I guess the next question I wanted to ask you was like, what?
Just 1 second, John. I'll be right back. I just have to use the restroom really quickly. I'll be right
no
there.
problem.
Just give me 60 seconds.
No problem. I can actually do this. All right. You know what? I'm going to take a break myself. We will be right back. Well, I guess I could just kind of take some of these questions while we're at it. Let's see. There was actually a question I wanted that Adrian said that I actually thought was really cool. Yes, I do feel, Adrian, that we have good chemistry. I will let Gavin know that when he returns. You bought Carpe. Yeah, when I got my last Pell check, I bought my computer system, my whole system here with that. It was great. I'm glad to have this system. I wish it was better, but you work with what you work with. What else? You liked Dora before I knew 25% of what I know. Yeah, like I said, I've never been a big Jimmy Dore fan. Again, I saw right through him even back then when he was at TYT. It was the pivot that he's on now is just really, really disappointing, but not surprising. And I think Gavin's coming back.
All right,
hey, welcome back. That was
going?
Quick. Don't worry, I won't have to edit this out. This is just going to be like reading some questions from my small audience. I think Adrian, I might have put it up, but she said we have good chemistry. So,
oh, nice. Well, thank you, Adrian. I'm glad you're enjoying the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see some of the Vanguard audience too. What's up, Soul Life and BCat K?
Yeah, I told them I was going to interview you, so that's why they're here. I told that to you in the chat. I'm like, oh shit, are they going to get mad that I'm doing this? Or all right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the next question was, what piqued your interest in leftist media?
being a viewer of it. I mean, before I ever even I had the thought of being on YouTube myself, or at least in the political realm, I've always kind of low key wanted to be a YouTuber. Like I was making movie reviews and shit for YouTube when I was like 14 and stuff. So I've always kind of been posting on YouTube, but I never actually thought I would be a successful political YouTuber. But I've always been a pretty big consumer of political media, especially the TYTs, Secular Talks, Jimmy Dore's, Rational Nationals, Humanist Reports, all that stuff. You know, the Bernie 20, all those channels that kind of came up in the wake of Bernie 2016. And then, of course, the Progressive Voice, Sahil, was a big inspiration, as many people have noticed. He, you know, kind of put the idea in my mind to do like drama content, because I used to love his show so much, and like just hearing about those like Twitter beefs and shit, like, you know, Kyle Kalinske calls out Jimmy Dore, I like that kind of stuff. I fucking loved that. And then when I was like, hey, we can do that too, that was a, you know, big thing. But yeah, it was really just being a viewer of progressive media that got me interested in it, and which kind of gave me the underlying knowledge of it to be able to commentate, right? Like knowing the dynamics and the histories of these different personalities and channels and their various conflicts and beefs and stuff like that. You know, I had a pretty pretty encyclopedic knowledge of that before starting the show, which definitely helped.
Yeah, I was the same way with like leftist media, starting with TYT and then just like going through, you know, all these channels, because a lot of these people, you know, I found through TYT. And I will say this, I found out about Michael Brooks through TYT, because he would go on as a guest. And it just kind of makes me wonder what he would think, because I feel like he would be very disappointed in us as the left in general, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean, as painful as it is to admit that, it's like, you know, some of his like closest friends would tell you that, oh, this is what he would think if he were alive, and I'm like, maybe, but you can't really know that for sure because you knew him. You know, I think personally, he did a show with Anna Kasparian on the weekends, and it was called Weekends on the Jacobin channel. And, you know, it's like, what would he think about her cringe takes, her right-wing takes? I mean, and the same could be said for Ben Burgess. I mean, I know you had him on the show a while back. You did an interview, and I think you did 2 interviews. I've interviewed him in the past. He did a whole thing. I mean, I hate to throw him under the bus here, but he did a whole thing basically saying, why Anna Kasparian should not be canceled. I don't understand why. And I'm just like, Ben, you're missing the point. You know, it's like you're blinded by your friendship that's making you see common sense and seeing why TYT, particularly Jake and Anna, yes, have been transphobic in their stance. And I said that in a tweet, and nothing.
Did he respond?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Ben Burgess. I honestly do. I think that he must, you know, be. I don't know what's going on with the Anna Kasparian thing. Clearly, their friendship or whatever has kind of led him to take a different position than I would. But in his defense, you know, even before Anna's comments, you know, he has kind of been on that. That's kind of been his thing. Like he wrote that book, Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. Yeah. He's devoted some of his commentary to talking about how the left can, and I do agree to some extent, devolve into just like a circular firing squad of like, oh, well, like, let's just nitpick each other over little things instead of actually moving the ball forward in a serious way. So I can understand like where he was coming from, but I just think that in that instance, it didn't apply because like, in my opinion, Anna was the one trying to cancel everyone that disagreed with her. No one was even trying to cancel Anna. Everyone that I saw was like, hey, I disagree. Let's talk about it. Like, let's have a civil discussion. Let me educate you. And her just going full fucking Karen and melting down. So like, while I could see what Ben Burgess was trying to articulate, I just think that it was like, he was going after Anna's critics when they were the ones being reasonable and she was the one acting like a Karen. And also she's the one with the platform. Like she has a way bigger platform than any of these random, you know, critics of hers online that are mad at her, calling her out or whatever. So yeah, I thought that was pretty ridiculous, but I still do like Ben Burgess, and I think that overall he does a lot of good work, and that he's an honest person. It's not like I think he just says the things he says because he wants to pick a side and that kind of shit. I think that he means what he says. I just disagree with it sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, the Leftist Mafia also, I mean, they did a huge thing on I think their second or third episode about the Kasparian drama. And I know that Alay was you had her on a few times, and because I go back to it when I need to. I want something to be entertained. I go back and watch that whole fucking segment, and it is one of the best things I've seen. And I'm hopeful that I can get her on to do an interview at some point. Because
she's super nice.
Yeah, she is. She is so awesome. Okay, so we actually are over our hour, but I want to, if you don't mind, I want to keep you here a little longer because I have a few questions.
Yeah, I probably got like 10 more minutes, so that's cool. But I do have to get out of here. Probably the next 10.
Definitely. I will ask you your 3 favorite leftist shows to watch. Speaking of, I think we've probably already covered
God. It. My 3 favorite leftist shows. Fuck. Putting me on the spot. Let me look at my subscriptions real quick. God.
My subscription count has gotten lower and lower, to be honest.
You mean like people that subscribe to you, or people that you subscribe to?
People I subscribe to, because they've just been so cringy. It's just like literally in the aftermath of all this TYT drama, I unfortunately had to go back and subscribe. Yes, I will show. Adrian Vixen is totally based, 100%, 1000%. Adrian, you are totally based. You are like. If it weren't for you, if it wasn't for I will say this, and I do not mean to put her on the spot, but if it wasn't for Adrian, I wouldn't have found you. I wouldn't have, had the rapport with the TYT moderators that I had. I mean, as shitty as the insider culture was, I will say the one thing that was positive that came out of this was I built a lot of good friendships, and we formed together with in our own little Discord group, and I'm actually in two good Discord groups that came out of my situation with TYT. So that's the positive thing.
Well, that's dope. Yeah, and yeah, totally. Shout out to Adrian. Always love seeing Adrian in the Vanguard chat, and that's super cool that she was the one who introduced you to us as well. So extra big shout out to Adrian for that. Honestly, it's tough to say like when you say the favorite channels, because at this point my viewing habits as a consumer of this content, it's so intertwined with like my job as someone who has to comment on it all that I don't really necessarily have favorites, but I do end up watching the most of probably Breaking Points, The Majority Report, Secular Talk, maybe and I don't know, sometimes the Bad Faith podcast, but it's tough because like I don't always agree with these people, right? And like, for example, I think Breaking Points to me is one of the most entertaining shows to watch because I enjoy the dynamic between someone on the left and someone on the right, like the kind of the disagreement aspect. It's the same reason why I find The Hills Rising very entertaining a lot of the times. It's like, even though I have to hear things I disagree with, I almost find that more interesting because if I just turn on like a Kyle Kalinske video, I definitely pretty much agree with most of what he's saying, but it's like, yeah, I already know that. If I get to hear someone on the left defending their position against someone who's pushing back, then it's like I get to see the ideas put to a test, right? It's a more interesting exchange, in my opinion. So while I don't necessarily think that Breaking Points is the best or most progressive show to watch, I do probably watch it the most, I would say, as far as the different channels that are out there. I hope that doesn't piss off anyone too much, but I do genuinely find that dynamic entertaining.
I understand. Like, I get why some people on the left would have some difficulties with Breaking Points, and I will say back like 3-4 years ago, I did watch Rising, and my only reason was because I wanted alternative to the morning news, like the
Yeah.
CBS This Morning and the Today Show. And as a consumer of news content since I was 13, I wanted to show that I wanted to see what the alternative was, what the independent was. Um, so, like I don't agree with everything Breaking Points does, and I'm probably going to upset my own audience too for this. But you know, on that rare occasion when if I'm like bored, I might just either just leisure watch for my own convenience. If you get what I'm saying.
Totally.
And
Yeah, it's
I
oh,
was
you're
going
good.
to
Go
say
ahead.
Kyle. I have my differences with Kyle too. I kind of feel like he's kind of whiny lately, just in some weird way. But he does have some decent takes, you know. And also, the Majority Report. I'm a huge fan of Mike Figueredo. Shouts out
Same.
Humorous
I love
Report.
Mike Figueredo.
Mike's great. Mac, good politic guy. David Dole, Rational National, Ole, you guys, Vanguard, Leftist Mafia. I am a consumer of leftist content, and I just, it's, and also movie night extravaganza. Just going to keep going. Movie night extravaganza, Cosmopolitics, Adrian Vixen, kind of do the Twitch side, as well. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I love all those guys too. Obviously we mentioned Ole, love Ole. But yeah, honestly, I am kind of at the point uh as a political thinker where it's like I am confident enough in my own political ideology, my own views that it's become less interesting for me to just listen to people who I agree with 100%. So like while I probably agree with like everything David Dole says, you know what I'm saying, like for the most
mhm,
part. I don't find myself watching his videos as much just cuz it's like I already like I don't really need I just don't feel like I need it as much. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Whereas I find it a lot more interesting and at least entertaining, maybe just from a selfish perspective, to listen to conversations with people who I don't just agree with 100%. Even though it can be kind of like triggering, as a lefty to like listen to, I don't know, fucking Destiny debate someone or
yeah,
Vosh debate someone or even like Sitch and Adam debate someone or something like that. I am kind of at the point where it's like, I know what I believe. I am a leftist. I don't need to hear, Amy Goodman tell me about, why American foreign policy is fucked up for the millionth time. Like I agree, and I still do consume that content all the time. I am an avid consumer of leftist content, partially because I have to constantly break it down,
watch,
dissect it,
yeah,
commentate it. But yeah, if I'm just like sometimes I'll just be on like a car ride, and I'll be listening to shit, and like I do find myself listening to commentators more and more so that I disagree with, just because it's more interesting on an intellectual
yeah,
level for me to kind of be like, huh, that's that's an interesting take. I disagree with it for all these reasons, but let me at least hear you explain how you came to that position. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, my podcast habits are probably the same, sort of the same. Like usually when I walk to school in the morning, I have like a podcast on. Like sometimes I'm trying to get out of the political news stuff, but there will be occasion like I will say like if Crystal or Kyle have somebody on that I am generally a fan of, I tend to listen. It's like and like again, it's just me being also intellectually curious. I
Right.
mean, 3 or 4 years ago, I was kind of like locking myself in a box by saying like these are the people I like, and because everyone else says these are the good guys, I must watch these people, and
Right.
because these people are so-called bad people on the left or whatever, I should not watch that. And I've kind
Yeah.
of tried to dig myself out of that and like again try to be my own person and consume different things and be open-minded even to people that I disagree with. And like not saying the people I disagree with I'm all of a sudden gonna like they're gonna change my mind. There's like probably 1,000 things that Sagar and Jetty has said that I'm definitely gonna disagree with just because he and I are, I mean, we're on the different diametrical
Wavelength.
political
Yeah.
path,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, but like, do I fault Crystal Ball for, you know, being on a show with him? Like, I mean, it's her choice to be. It's like it's what she wants to do. I wouldn't necessarily do it, but by all means.
Yeah, totally. And it's just, I think it makes you a better leftist, a better progressive to actually
Hmm.
understand the arguments of people who disagree with us. Like a lot of people, regardless of what political position they have, they just convince themselves that they're the only one that has like they just think everyone else is the enemy, everyone else is evil, everyone else is stupid. It's like that's actually not true. Like most people do think that they're right. Most people think that they're on the right side of history, that they're advocating for the moral position. And even if they're completely off base, it can just be interesting to like listen to them actually articulate their perspective and why they think that they're right about what they're saying, so that then the next time you're having a discussion with someone who also feels that way, you understand that perspective and are better equipped to argue with it or debate it or whatever. If you're just in an echo chamber, and like I remember, speaking of progressive voice, I remember when he debated Destiny. I don't know if you ever
Hmm.
saw that, but
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah, for sure.
you could just tell that Sahil was in such an echo chamber that he hadn't even considered a lot of the arguments that Destiny was making. So then when Destiny made them, he was just like dumbfounded. Like he just didn't have any response because he hadn't even considered a lot of the things Destiny was saying, even though what Destiny was saying was absolute bullshit. Like it was insanity. I remember the things he was saying. It was stupid. He was like talking about why, Medicare for all was unviable and why we needed a public option instead, and how Pete Buttigieg was actually based, and like all this insanity, right? Stuff that should have been easy to argue with, but he
Hmm.
couldn't because he didn't really seem to even understand or have any knowledge of the perspectives that he was encountering. So yeah, I think it's really important to listen to a variety of different arguments and perspectives. That way, when you are trying to articulate your own opinion, it's not just a regurgitation of whatever you're hearing from your own echo chamber. It's actually developed and nuanced and taking into
Hmm.
account the other ways of thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I did watch, actually. I know we have to wrap up here, but I did watch the episode of Vanguard this summer when the mods quit again, where I think somebody sent you a super chat and asked if you would have progressive voice on the show, and I think you said you'd reached out, you and Zach, several times, and he hasn't responded. Is that something you would probably see, like, consider in the future? Like, hey, like, just reach out and say, hey, man, I know we've had our disagreements, but we really do like what you do, and you're like, again, the founder of this, like, going on YouTube and doing the whole like left gossip thing. We kind of want to have a conversation with you. Is that something that you and Zach would probably like can still consider down the road?
I mean, sure. I've already tried to make it happen. I've messaged him probably 2 times at least, saying exactly what you just said, just being like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" The first time I hit him up, I think we were trying to debate. Second time, I was just like, "If you don't want to debate, that's cool. I'd love to just chat." Never heard back. So, I don't think Sahil's really even involved much with YouTube anymore. I don't think he really does
Mhm.
a lot of videos and stuff. So I think he's probably just focused on other things, and
Yeah,
also
I think.
potentially salty that we, kind of stole his concept and did it better. But I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, again, I do like the guy. I mean, again, he was the founder of, like, one of the founders anyway of this like space
Totally.
that we are both in, and I try to be cool with everybody. Like, even people I disagree with, it's like we need to kind of get past the high school drama shit that's been going on, especially on like Twitter. And it's kind of like what and my friend Andrew Ravinsky would say. Just get past the drama shit. We need to be
Yeah,
unified again. And
that would be great.
so I would like. I know again we have to go. I don't mean to keep you here longer, but I do want to ask you, because you do another show, Screen Fiends. Um, so you're also a filmmaker. Um, I guess I have to ask you because I know you guys are big. You and Zach are big Kevin Smith fans, which that's one of the reasons why I found you, because I've watched the interview you did with fucking
Sav?
yeah, Sav Rogers. I don't
Yeah.
want to say the swear word because I really respect her or respect him. Sorry. Oh, oh God,
Oh,
that's
you're good.
terrible. I respect Sav Rogers, and I love the movie Chasing Amy. And so I guess I have to ask you. I would say 3 favorite Kevin Smith films, but that's probably an interesting question. Like that's like a question that could already have an answer.
I don't think so. I mean, I probably have a slightly different answer than most people. Mallrats is actually my favorite Kevin Smith movie. A lot of people don't give Mallrats the appreciation it deserves, but for a variety of reasons, that's my favorite one of his. I think I mean, Clerks is probably objectively like his best movie. Although I know some people say Chasing Amy. I love Chasing Amy too, but for me, it would probably be Mallrats, Clerks, and honestly, I love Tusk. I would say Tusk is probably my third favorite. Again, bit of an unpopular opinion, but I love what he did with Tusk. But yeah, huge Kevin Smith fan. What I'm not a fan of though is like his more recent Jay and Silent Bob and Clerks movies. I hated the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and I hated Clerks 3. But
I have both of those.
You what?
I have them both.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know why. It was just like weird. I just thought he kind of misunderstood.
I did ask you that as well in the Q&A, and you said there was like more boomer humor, which after some thought, I thought, good point.
Yeah, just like it was so sentimental too. Like all these scenes trying to make you cry and stuff. And at least in the third Clerks, I was like, this isn't really like the point of this franchise or this series, in my opinion. Like I don't really see it as this like sentimental like, oh, like Randall's wife died in a car crash and now he's at her grave and I'm like, what the fuck is Dante, it's like, what the fuck. But I am excited for Kevin Smith's new movie that he's working on, which apparently is completely unconnected to any of the Jay and Silent Bob shit. It's like a 80s set film about kind of a hangout movie.
Mine are Chasing Amy, Clerks, Mallrats, and Dogma. I will throw Dogma in there because it as eclectic as it is a very good film.
Oh, I love Dogma. Yeah, you don't have to convince me, bro. That movie's great.
I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just throwing. And Strike Back also is that was like the first film that I saw of his, B-Cat does say watch Chasing Amy.
I love Chasing Amy too. It's great. It doesn't speak to me as it does to some people, but I do appreciate it, and especially the end of that movie always makes me quite emotional. Yeah,
I mean it's really, it's really interesting, and again, it was problematic. Like I did a whole Letterboxd review. I watched the film and did a review and made an honest assessment of like, yes, that film was problematic, in 1997 because again, society was different then, but it does support the LGBTQ plus community in the best way that Kevin Smith knows how to do so. I mean, he's good with dialogue. We'll say that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like it some of the characters in that movie obviously express problematic opinions, but people in real life are problematic. Like I think it's ridiculous when people say that films and filmmakers should shy away from accurately depicting the way people talk or act, and especially in the 90s, a lot of people did talk that way about LGBT folks and stuff like that. But the movie is not in any way like bigoted towards gay folks or LGBT people at all. It's actually incredibly progressive for its time as far as its depiction of that community.
And what Sav was saying in the interview you did with her or with him. Sorry, oh my God. That he said it was not homophobic garbage,
right.
That it actually articulates, again, the LGBTQ community that Kevin Smith knows how to do. But it's still a good movie, and it's still one of his best, next to Mallrats, next to Dogma, next to Clerks 1 and Clerks 2. I'm gonna throw it in there. Clerks 2 is another one that I like.
I love Clerks 2 also. I think it understands the original, what made the original in a way that the third movie just completely missed. Like, I have my issues with Clerks 2, but at the heart of it, it still is kind of a hangout movie, just in a fast food restaurant instead of a convenience store, which is a welcome change of scenery. And yeah, it's just way funnier, and it has that raunchy humor intact, which I think, again, the third movie just kind of throws out
Yes.
the window in favor of like this sanitized sentimentalism for no reason other than Kevin Smith had a heart attack and was in his feelings. Like, I don't know, but
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, after Jersey Girl, when how that failed, it was real. I guess he kind of reconsidered, because like Strike Back was supposed to be the last film in the View Askew universe, and
Mhm.
like featuring Jay and Silent Bob. And then 5 years later, after Jersey Girl had failed, like Kevin Smith like reconsidered, and then decided I'll just continue with Clerks 2 and bring the View Askew universe back. And I think the next one, yeah, is called Moose Jaws, and he's making I think a Mallrats sequel.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know
it's
if Moose
called
Jaws
Twilight
is
of
actually going to
Mallrats.
happen. I kind of doubt that it will, because remember like how Johnny Depp was involved with those movies. He was playing that,
Yeah,
and
and
I
then
think
all
that
the
after
stuff
all
with
that
him.
shit went down, like I
Yeah,
don't think he's probably going to return to the whole True North trilogy concept because of how big of a flop fucking Yoga Hosers was, and the Johnny. It just seems. I don't think he's going to
yeah,
return to that, but he is working on something totally original that's not connected to either of those, which is like set in the 1980s, I think. So I'm excited for that.
yeah, definitely. I would love to see that. I still think, I mean, a Mallrats sequel has to happen just to end it, just to end the View Askew universe. I know it'll be difficult. I know Reboot was probably difficult. I know Clerks 3 was difficult. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a, I don't know. I guess I'm just biased because I actually like him as a film. Like even his worst stuff, he's just good at writing and he's good at dialogue. And if he can do that, then you got
Oh
me.
yeah, I'll always watch everything he makes, even if I don't end up loving it. And also, apparently, Soul Life in the chat said he worked with the Jesus kid from Clerks too. Is that actually true? Soul Life?
Is
That's
that
crazy.
true, Soul Life? Is it?
The kid who's like all into Lord of the Rings and shit. That's the best bit in Clerks too. And Randall is like mocking the Lord of the Rings trilogy,
Oh yeah, he's
and
like,
he's
yeah,
like,
you
"Oh, they're
throw it out.
fucking the first movie they're just walking, the second movie
Hmm.
they're just walking, the third one they put the fucking ring in the volcano." Like that shit
Yeah,
is
and
funny.
yeah, and he makes the guy throw up. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so that is dope, Soul Life. Did he? I wonder if he behaved in real life as your coworker like he did in Clerks 2. I doubt it. He's probably a totally normal guy. But yeah.
Yeah, and we also have to acknowledge the fact that he's on good terms with Ben Affleck, Kevin Smith.
Oh, Kevin Smith. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
he just
yeah,
seems like such a nice guy. And
he
that was one of
does.
the cool things too about I'm not close friends with Sav or anything, but just talking to Sav and hearing about how much Kevin Smith supported Sav in
Hmm.
Sav's documentary work and making the film Chasing Amy. Like Sav
Okay.
actually became pretty close friends with Kevin through that process,
Yeah.
and I think still is. And the fact that Kevin Smith is just so willing to support and help out young filmmakers like that, I think that's so cool. He seems like a great guy. I mean, who knows? Maybe behind
Yeah.
the scenes he's an asshole or something. But from everything
I
I've
hope not.
seen, he's a great
I hope
guy.
not. Yeah, I have not seen Chasing Amy. I did ask Sav whether or not there was going to be like a physical home release, like a DVD. Like they don't really make DVDs anymore, but if there's going to be like something like a Blu-ray or something
Yeah,
released, I would want to see it because I have seen the
hopefully.
trailer and it is well done.
Oh yeah.
So I applaud Sav for
Yeah,
that.
that's so cool to see him succeeding out there. I met Sav when I was in ninth grade, and he was in 12th grade.
Oh wow.
In high school. Yeah, we had like a film, like this weird like film class together that like literally 4 people were in, ourselves included. And we would always talk about movies and argue about movies and stuff. But it's so cool to see that he's actually been able to succeed out there. But anyway, I do have to get going here pretty soon,
Yeah,
John. If you want to wrap this up.
definitely. Yeah, if you could just plug, I guess, do the wrap up, the plug. There was a lot of other stuff I wanted to talk, like the 2024 race, but I think we kind of covered that already. So, yeah, just
Absolutely.
plug away, you know, do what
Yeah,
you
for
do.
sure. I mean, it looks like all the stuff's at the bottom of the screen there. Appreciate you for putting that on the little Chiron or whatever it's called. But yeah, at Gavin CMB is my Twitter. That's probably the best place to follow me if you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing as far as Vanguard stuff goes, but also like filmmaking stuff and everything. So I would definitely recommend you follow me over there. I try to follow people back, so I'll try to follow you back unless you just
You did
post
give
on.
me the follow back. Yeah.
I did. I thought I had like a long time ago. I was like, oh fuck, I never followed John back on my personal account. But yeah,
Although
we are
you
now
probably have to follow me
mutuals.
back on the Vanguard because I had to make a whole new account because I got hacked on my other one.
Yeah, I noticed. I was like, I thought it was a different profile, but anyway, yeah. Anyway, follow me over there. Gonna be some cool information dropping soon about some of my film work. So excited for that. And yeah, follow the Vanguard on YouTube and on Twitch. Even though no one watches us on Twitch, you can be one of the 2 people that tune in
Oh,
on
I
Twitch.
have.
You can be proud of the fact, John, by the way, that more people are watching your show on Twitch right now than tune into the Vanguard on Twitch.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah, so there's a
we'll
feather in
split
your
that.
cap.
I'll split it with you. I'll split it with you and Zach.
There you go.
As fellow Kansas City leftist Midwesterners, we need to split it.
Absolutely.
All right, Zach. There's 2 of you. All right, Gavin. I appreciate you, man, and what you do, and again, just keep doing it, man.
I appreciate you, John. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. All right, that was Gavin from the Vanguard and the Screen Fiends. That was it. We went past our hour. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to BCat. Thanks to Soul Life. Thanks to Adrian. Thanks to, let me see if I miss anybody. I think I said Soul Life. I think there was somebody else in the chat. Carpe Pax on Twitch. Yeah, thanks to everybody. Lost Doctor, everybody who tuned in and watched and put up with my nervousness, because obviously you can see that this is a little bit overwhelming, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy these interviews. Just quick notice that as the semester is winding down, I will be more on Twitch and doing more YouTube interviews. So you'll be seeing me do more video game streams that I have been doing. And with that, and let me just plug my own self here. You can catch, let's see. Okay, I'll just say I will see you tomorrow, or not tomorrow. I will see you very soon. Peace.